to my philosophy of education. I'm Julie Fontana. I want to start off by telling you a little bit about myself. I currently have 12 years of experience in education, 2 years with at-risk youth in the special education field, 1 year in early childhood education, special education, 7 years of special education in an elementary school setting, LD, RSP, and then 2 years of teacher support through the BITSA program and also through the school district's department, working with special education teachers. So I'd like to begin with an introduction to my key points. First, I'm going to talk about behaviorism and how that influenced me. Then I'm going to talk about my transition into progressivism, and then I'm going to talk about my progressivism theory that I have now. So I'd like to begin with behaviorism. I'm going to talk a little bit about, I have a bachelor's degree in psychology, and so that's where a lot of my behaviorist theory came from. We studied a lot about behavior and how it directly applied to ABA principles with children with autism. We studied Pavlov, we studied Skinner, we studied Thorndike, we studied Watson. So all of those were very familiar to me. I did a lot of classical conditioning, operant conditioning. My instruction looked like direct instruction and some classical conditioning. My classroom management was tied to token economies that were tied to the classroom rules that were usually directed by the teacher. My style was behavioral objectives and trying to control behaviors. So I was looking at the child in just as a set of behaviors. And I did a lot of programmed instruction. The language exclamation point program was what we were using in our Tier 3 setting. So a lot of that had some behaviorist theory behind it. But what I realized most about the behaviorist theory was that it wasn't working for me in my classroom, in any setting I was in. It wasn't working in RSP, LD, any of that. And so what I did some self-directed learning. I began to research. I didn't know it was called the progressivism theory. I didn't know I was a progressivist, but through my self-directed learning, I was able to understand that I was having a shift. So I'm not going to read this whole quote, but what I did pull from this quote was that I needed something that was going to help students be self-directed in their learning, something that was going to promote discovery, values of community, values of cooperation, values of tolerance. I needed something that was child-centered instruction instead of teacher-centered. I needed that shift to happen. And the big takeaway for me was I needed to teach the students how to learn how to learn. And that's what the progressive thought brought for me, was learning how to learn. So going into my progressivism, or my progressive thought and theory, my instruction shifted. We started doing a lot of cooperative learning groups, a lot of problem solving, decision-making activities together as a group. We did whole group, we did small groups, we did one-on-one type activities. My classroom management system shifted. We didn't have token economies, we had more child-centered classroom management. And then my teaching style was huge. This was the biggest shift for me. I became a collaborative partner and facilitator of learning. So that shift happened to me, and it was for the better. And so, concluding my key points, I still do have the behaviorist theory in me, and I do believe that this is a good thing to have in the special education field, because we know that we're not just special education teachers, but that we have a case management duty and a paperwork duty. And so this does help me in that case, writing better behavioral intervention plans, having better behavioral goals. We go in with a nice set of criteria when we're observing a student. So I do believe that the behaviorist theory still is applicable to my job, and I still hold on to it, which is why I think it showed up when I took the survey. The transition to progressivism happened when I had my own self-directed learning, and I realized I needed more, I needed something different to change, because what I was doing wasn't producing the results I needed. And then that moved me into the progressive thought, which I have today, the learning how to learn, the cooperative learning groups, the being the facilitator of learning, versus just looking at straight trials of of behavior and trying to change those and manipulate those behaviors. So I would like to conclude with a couple of items that I took. I did synthesize the information from the philosophy of education. I did do a direct quote from Laborie, and then I did some synthesizing of our textbook. So I hope you enjoy my philosophy of education. Thank you.